So the bill, here's some pointers. So the bill would first facilitate state intervention when officials show signs of radicalization. Number two, it will strengthen controls and dry up the funding of organizations that promote radicalism under the guise of sport or leisure. Number three, it will make school compulsory from the age of 3 and ban homeschooling to prevent the formation of Islamic schools, although children with health problems are exempted. Okay, so there's your answer about the Islamic schools thing. So they actually want to prevent that, and that's why they are actually going to make school compulsory, public school compulsory for all kids to go to. Then they're going to focus on monitoring language schools. So like schools that teach in Arabic, schools that teach in other languages. Create a certification for French imams, which is fantastic. Like you have to go through a certification process if you want to be an imam in France. And then monitor the funding of religious groups in foreign countries and prohibit projects incompatible with the values of the Republic. This is about the mosques receiving foreign funding. And then set aside 10 million euros to support high-level Islamic studies and create a scientific institute of Islamology. So they are going to promote the study of Islam. They're going to promote a program where they teach Islamic studies. They're putting 10 million euros into it for high-level Islamic studies.
I don't like that. That's too much government involvement in ideologies.
Well, I mean, nobody has to enroll in it. It's just the government on its own.
It's still government. The government is doing a study or something? I don't know.
No. They're creating a high-level Islamic studies program.
By the government?
Yeah, they're not setting it up themselves. They're putting 10 million euros in it.
Yeah, but that's taxpayer money, though.
Yeah, to support it, to support high-level Islamic studies. Well, taxpayer money, listen, you got all this taxpayer money that goes into giving tax breaks to churches.
Like, what is this? Is like objectively studying the history, or is this like Islamic propaganda, but the version of Islamic propaganda the government approves? This seems very depending on what this is about, it could be very anti-secular to me.
Okay, so listen, they're setting aside 10 million euros to support. Right? They're not going to create it themselves. They're going to support. Just as like, the government puts money into
this is the same thing. What's the difference? Do you think when they make it themselves, does that mean like that they're funding other people who are doing the study? Do you think that Macron himself is actually, if it wasn't, is going to be doing the study?
No, they're going to create it. High level.
The money is basically the same as creating it themselves.
Yeah,
go on.
They will create it. So they're saying they want to create a scientific institute of Islamology. So they want to. This is a government project. So
what is this for, though? What does it do? Like, is it objectively, like, what is it like? Is it going to be promoting a brand of Islam over another one?
It's going to be a study of Islam, probably a secular study of Islam. The scientific study of Islamology means the study of Islam. It's not of.
To what end?
I don't know.
Because an objective of okay. When it comes to study of Islam, there is a theological perspective and an objective perspective.
It's not theological. Yeah.
Okay, if it's an objective perspective, it does nothing on people's ideologies, right? Like, an objective study of Islam is what? Like, oh, look at this coin during the Umayyad dynasty, and it was like had a cross on it. Why did it have a cross on it? Like, what? Like, that is an objective study of history of Islam, and that does nothing on changing the people's views on the ground. Okay, so the only one that could like people imagine has any influence on people's opinion on the ground is a theological study or promotion of a certain views on Islam, which no government should have any role in my opinion.
What?
So I don't know what it.
They're not going to. It's not a theological thing. But why wouldn't the other one have any influence? I mean, I
didn't say it does or doesn't. That's another debate. Okay, because if we open that can of worms, that's going to be like another discussion. But whether it does or doesn't, the government now all of a sudden coming and putting their weight behind certain theological perspectives over others, that is like, what the hell are you even doing? Like, get the hell out of here. This is not your field. Okay,
They're not doing
what are they? Because if they're doing the other thing,
hold on.
yeah.
Let me just tell you what they're doing.
Okay.
It's a study of Islamology. Islamology is not a study on theology. Islamology is studying the history of Islam, what Muslims believe, how Islam started. It's that kind of thing. It's just sort of creating a certain
To what end? To what end? To do
to
what?
educate people and make them more aware of it. Maybe they want to
I
help
could
integrate the Muslims. I mean, I'm not saying that I support the curriculum completely, right?
That
But
will help academic scholars. It's not going to have any impact on the average Muslim living in France.
it may not, but what it will do is that young kids who are growing up and they go to these secular schools 20 years from now and they think, okay, what do I want to study? Well, there's this Islamology Institute. My parents were Muslims. Right? This was a controversial thing. I just want to see, what is this? What did my parents believe? Where did all this stuff come from? They
Was
might go
this
in and learn about
not?
it. It's an
Wait.
academic study of it. It's just now the thing is, look, they already have programs like this all over they're all over Germany, everywhere.
Again, I'm not saying this is a bad or good thing. It's just whenever I see government getting involved with religion, it's a red flag for me, right?
So
I'm not being, right now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. I just get like, I have this like reaction to seeing government getting involved with any religion. Like, I think even if it's a good thing, if this is not a red flag for you, then I mean, as a secular activist, this should be a red flag for you.
I
Maybe
think
go look into it.
for me, it's a very, very sort of a pale pink flag. So in the sense that I would be cautious about it and cautious to see whose hands it falls under. Now, if they appoint like one of these like crazy people to run it or something, that's a different thing. I wouldn't put it past them. But you have institutes in Germany who do academic scholarship of Islam that do get government support. Like I said, they do get the government support because they are researching certain things. They get federal funding to do all kinds of research. Now, the most important thing is that people get tax benefits. Churches, mosques, synagogues, they do not have to pay taxes, and that's also a way of governmental support. I think that is much, much more problematic, and it's all over. It's everywhere. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but I think that they want to try and promote, instead of indoctrination and theological indoctrination of people, for the Muslim kids and the ones who are not Muslim, they're completely in the dark as to what this is, and the only exposure they're getting to 10% of their population. 10% of France is Muslim. The only exposure they're getting to that is through these terrorist attacks, and that's the only thing that they're getting. There is an attempt to try and integrate everybody and have the non-Muslims learn more about the whole Muslim thing, and have Muslims learn more about their own
society. So if I was, I think if I was in charge of anything, or if I was like suggesting, I would be like, let's make critical thinking skill classes mandatory for everybody, since that would be the number thing I would recommend. Okay,
I agree.
Since elementary school, right? Just learning logical fallacies, and that should be mandatory for all the students. Okay. Then if it comes to religion, to make teaching religion and de-radicalizing, or even fighting against any form of dogma, what I would have the government do is to study the history of religion as a whole, which would include skeptics and atheists throughout history as well, right? So that's what I would suggest. Like, I would include, as mandatory part of school curriculum, to learn about the history of all religions globally, including the pushback against it, and the skeptics and the protests and the atheists, right? So I think that would help. I think that would be, and again, if I do every religion, then that comes off a lot more secular to me than if I was like, that's fun, this is Islamic studies. Again, I know that studying Islamic history by itself is very, objectively, it's not religious propaganda, and it's very, very helpful. I just don't know how much of an influence. Like that's what the only way that could have an effect on the ground is if people elect, because you can't force Islamic studies on people, right? Like I know other people have taken like studies, like we saw Humanist Society of Santa Barbara mentioning in the live chat that she took a history of atheism lecture and that she liked it, and she found it very helpful. And I think that would be very helpful, but that's not something that most people will go and seek, and you can't force people to seek them. And I'm pretty sure whoever takes that is going to find it helpful, and it's going to be but again, this is going to have a very have an impact on a very fringe group of people. The only way that you could mandate any form of studies on all the students, if you do a history of religion class, and therefore the government is not picking any religion, and then now you could say everybody in high school has to take history of religion class on all religion, and I think that would be a better de-radicalization.
Sure.